Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Kasparian with you guys. We've got a new bill. The Senate has passed a new bill. That's breaking news. We'll get to that a little bit later in the program and tell you the details as far as we have them. The Democrats win major concessions. Come on, who are we kidding? Okay, but I guess some concessions. Anyway, devil's in the details. So is Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell. Anyway, we'll get to that later. And big show ahead for you guys. Obviously, Donald Trump causing havoc as always. Now, I did want to check in on the thermometer as we do in the beginning of most shows, at least. So this is tyt.com/go. This is our fundraising effort to make sure that the Young Turks remains the light in the darkness and that we press on, if you will. And yesterday we were trying to get to $135,000 before the end of the show, and then we were trying to get to $140,000 before the beginning of today's show. Did we get to either one of those marks, 135 or 140? Let's take a look. Oh, interesting. Somewhere in the middle, $138,782. That's great. I love you guys. Right now, we're still in the matching grant period, so if you put in $28, all of a sudden it's $56. And I'm doing this math every time off the top of my head. Look, I know you're impressed. It's not a big deal. Let's move on. Hashtag would a hero do that kind of math right away off top of his head? I don't know. Only one way to find out. Go to tyt.com/go, put in a weird amount, and see if I can do the math. Okay.
Speaking of weird amounts, yesterday, many donations coming in for $4.20. I think there was actually a $420 donation yesterday. Excellent. In honor of a very special day. Yes. Well,
as luck would have it, 421 is my lucky number. So I'm not saying $421 will turn into $842, except I am saying that because it's matching grant time. tyt.com/go. Okay. Hey, maybe we'll get to 143 by the end of the show, and then boom, we'll add $50,000 on top. That's Joe from LA. All of a sudden, we're almost at 200,000, which is what we need by the end of the month. All right, Anna, let's get started on the news.
All right.
There are more important things than living, and that's saving this country for my children and my grandchildren, and saving this country for all of us.
That was Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who apparently hasn't received enough backlash after the first time he encouraged people to risk their lives in order to reopen the economy. During his recent interview with Tucker Carlson, he doubled down, arguing that he was absolutely right, that your life is worth risking, so his stock portfolio will look real good. Take a look.
On this, and I'm thankful that we are now, Tucker, finally beginning to open up Texas and other states because it's been long overdue. You know, they told us, Tucker, to follow the science. Well, what science? I mean, at the end of January, Dr. Fauci, who I have great respect for, said this wasn't a big issue. 3 weeks later, we were going to lose 2 million people. Another few weeks later, it was 1 to 200,000. Now it's under 60,000. And we've had the wrong numbers, the wrong science. And I don't blame them. But let's face reality of where we are. In Texas, we have 29 million people. We've lost 495, and every life is valuable. But 500 people out of 29 million, and we're locked down, and we're crushing the average worker. We're crushing small business. We're crushing the markets. We're crushing this country. And what I said when I was with you that night, there are more important things than living, and that's saving this country for my children and my grandchildren, and saving this country for all of us. And I don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. But, man, we got to take some risk and get back in the game and get this country back up and running.
So I always want to respond to these types of arguments with, you should lead by example. So if he genuinely thinks that there are things in life that are more important than life itself, then, I mean, go out there, right? Like, go out there, like, rub up against people, go lick some, like, crosswalk buttons. You know what I mean? Like, show us that it's okay to go out there and, like, literally risk your life just so people can make money, right? And, like, everything that he said there was a lie. And the reason why it's a lie is because Texas does not have widespread testing available. So he doesn't have a handle. He has no idea in regard to how many people have coronavirus. They're unable to track people appropriately. We still don't have a vaccine. So, like, he talks about it as if he's the expert, as if he knows more than the scientists, than the healthcare experts, more than Anthony Fauci. But he doesn't know how many people have coronavirus in his own state. He just wants people to get back to work because in his mind, right, losing your life means nothing. He's not going to risk his life, but you going out there, working again, getting the economy fired up again, means that he's not going to have to worry about any, again, losses in his stock portfolio, any issues with the economy, even though, as we've explained a million times before, Cenk, long term, this is a disastrous idea. It's just going to make this virus drag out longer than it needs to.
I have maybe a slightly more productive suggestion than your idea of licking different traffic signs.
I just want him to lead by example. That's all.
He could actually go and volunteer at hospitals. And I know a lot of the hospitals don't have testing for the people who are staff there. We told you a story of a hospital in Ohio where none of the staff are allowed to be tested. But, you know, Texas doesn't have a lot of tests either. But that's okay, because Dan Patrick says, you know, the stock market's more important than his life. So he could be helping people. It's not just spiteful. He could lead by example and help folks. Now, look, let's get to the substance of his comments. One, he says, you know, what science? Well, the science that told us that social distancing would work, and it has. So it has led to a lower number of deaths, exactly as the scientists said. Now he's saying, goddamn scientists, I can't believe they were right about social distancing. Forget it. Let's not listen to the scientists anymore. I mean, there's this great, great irony that the more we listen to the scientists, less people die. And the less people die, the more angry conservatives get at scientists and say, I thought the number was going to be bigger. We should have never listened to these scientists. Well, if we had not listened to the scientists as you wanted, trust me, the number would have been a lot bigger. I mean, let's look at the number as it stands today. So now we have more than 813,000 cases in America. Again, we lead the world. I think the next 3 or 4 countries combined don't have as many cases as we do. And then we just passed 45,000 deaths. That's 15 9/11s. And Dan Patrick goes on Fox News to say, you see, I told you it was no big deal. Only 15 9/11 worth of dead people in America. So let's reopen the markets. Let's reopen businesses. And implicit in all this is when he says, and this is an amazing quote. You saw it in the video, but it's worth repeating. There are more important things than living. Well, first of all, that seems counterintuitive. Okay. Second of all, what? Okay, then what? What's more important than living? And I get it if you say, hey, I'm going to sacrifice myself for my fellow soldiers and their 3 lives are more important than my 1 life. Hey, I'm going to sacrifice myself for my grandchildren. I'm going to, throw myself on a hand grenade. I get it, right? But I'm going to throw myself on a hand grenade so that the stock market can go up 11%. Yeah, I don't know about that. And second of all, what Dan Patrick is actually saying is, no, not my life. The stock market is more important than your life.
So I want to be clear about something. Every time one of these mouth-breathing Republicans argues that they're pro-life and they want to ban any form of abortion, even in the first trimester, I just want all of you watching this to cite what Dan Patrick said, right? There are more important things than living, right? Because he doesn't actually value life. He doesn't value the lives of others. He puts profit over actual human lives. Now, in the case of abortion, we've talked about this a million times before. I don't agree that a non-viable fetus is the same as a living, breathing human. But they claim that they care about all forms of life, including zygotes, right? But they only cite that when it's convenient for them, when they're trying to win political brownie points with their base or with their constituents. The truth is they don't actually value life. They only pretend to when it's convenient for them to do so. And I want to go back to the testing issue because Texas is one of the states that really does lag in the number of tests per capita. So the COVID tracking project has broken down the numbers even, specifically by state. And if you look at Texas specifically, they're testing 6.6 people or they're administering 6.6 tests per 1,000 individuals, right? 1,000 people. And if you want to compare that to a state that's actually doing better in widespread testing, you can look at New York, where they're doing 32.4 tests per 1,000 people. So Texas is far behind. They don't really have a sense of how widespread this virus is. They don't know how many people have it. And as we know, you can be completely asymptomatic with this virus and you can be spreading it like wildfire. So he's really playing with fire here in encouraging the state to open back up. And unfortunately, you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's just as powerful as the governor in the state of Texas. And then there's the governor, Greg Abbott, who announced initial steps to reopen the Texas economy, including those that will loosen surgery restrictions at medical facilities, allow all retail stores to provide product pickups, and reopen state parks. And also keep in mind that at least 65 Texas counties, as of April 13th, had 5 or fewer tests administered. At least 26 of those counties had 0 tests administered. They just don't care about human lives. They just don't.
As we'll talk about later in the program, and you can always become a member to get the whole program, tyt.com/join. Kentucky now has cases flaring up because some of the protesters thought the restrictions were too much. Oops. So last thing here, Anna, you make a great point about the pro-life position. I had not thought of that. But that leads me to a second thought about it. Maybe we could prove that the pro-choice position improves the stock market by 5%. We can get all the conservatives to change their so-called pro-life position. They'd be like, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, like,
if you show that more abortions mean more profits for them, they'll be all for it. Seriously.
Yeah. We could end the abortion debate overnight. And it does 5%, not even need that much. Hey, your stock portfolio is going to go up by 2.5%. All the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patricks in America will be like, oh, yeah, abortion. I mean, really, what's the big deal about abortion? Is it really life anyway? It's not even viable. That's not life. Life isn't worth living anyway. Dude, maybe your life isn't worth living, but for the rest of us, we'd like to stay alive.
It's just these Republicans are horrible. Well, let's move on to one other horrible Republican, and that's Donald Trump, the top dog in disgusting behavior. So in an effort to basically distract Americans from the complete and utter failure that Donald Trump has been in response to the coronavirus, along with everything else in his presidency, he's decided to try to distract people with anti-immigration policy that literally does nothing because immigration is already significantly restricted due to COVID-19. So he first mentioned this during his COVID-19 press conference. Let's hear what he had to say.
The farmers, they've had this for years.
This via Twitter, and he said, in light of the attack from the invisible enemy, as well as the need to protect the jobs of our great American citizens, I will be signing an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration into the United States. Now, his tweet, of course, as always, shocked people in his own administration. They're now scrambling to get an executive order written. But when I say that this doesn't actually do anything, I mean it, because again, immigration has already been severely restricted as a result of this pandemic. And Trump's tweet did not make clear what specific action he would take. He could simply suspend entries for a period of time or cancel a specific program altogether for the year. The Department of Homeland Security is still drafting that executive order, according to 3 people familiar with the situation. One possibility that has been discussed is an exemption for temporary guest workers, including those who work on farms. So right now, the only immigration that the Trump administration is incredibly friendly to is the worker visas, right? They want farmers to be able to find enough employees to harvest the agriculture that they need. And farmers have said, like, we've tried to hire Americans, they refuse to take the job. And so we need these foreign workers in order to run our farms and do our work. And so earlier this month, Trump had had a question asked about what he was going to do when it came to foreign workers, and he was incredibly friendly to them, and he'll remain friendly to them because he himself, as a business owner, has taken advantage of low-paid foreign workers. So here's an older video earlier this month where Trump said that he's going to look out for some of these foreign workers.
The farmers, they've had this for years. We want the farmers to be able to get the people that have been working those farms for years, or we're not going to have farms. So they're going to come in, and they're going to be given a certain pass, and we're going to check them very, very closely, especially over the next month. Because remember, after a month or so, I think once this passes, we're not going to have to be, hopefully, worried too much about the virus. But we want them to come in. We're not closing the border so that we can't get any of those people to come in. They've been there for years and years, and I've given the commitment to the farmers they're going to continue to come, or we're not going to have any farmers.
Okay, so I will break down what all of that means and what he's actually going to do. So I love this story because of how nonsensical Trump is in this. Ooh, I know. What's new, right? It's Tuesday. So first of all, that's it. We're doing big restrictions. Did you know that we already have restrictions in travel from Mexico, Canada, Europe, and China? Okay, that's it. New Zealand, you're on the list now. Okay. So, all right. Well, then the number of people that are coming in are not tourists. There's almost no travel all across the world in terms of tourists, students, etc. It's foreign workers, and that's why we're having this conversation about the workers. So, actually, you saw that clip, and I'll tell you why he did that. But in early April, the administration had a plan to pause the approval of 35,000 more seasonal worker visas, but they backtracked from it. Now, why did they backtrack from it? Because the Chamber of Commerce called and said, hey, you orange buffoon, you work for us, and those are cheap laborers that we need. So cut it out and give us the visas. We're going to use them to do the farm work. And by the way, if they catch coronavirus, who cares? And Trump's like, oh, great point. Yes, sorry. And that's why you see the video that we just showed you. He's like, otherwise we won't have any farmers. That's why we're doing this. We got to have the farmers. So get a load of this. And I'll quote Politico here. Specifically, the U.S. eased requirements for immigrants to get certain jobs such as farm workers, landscapers, and crab pickers, aware that certain industries, including those that fill grocery store shelves, could be hurt during the pandemic if they couldn't hire foreign employees. I want you to focus on the beginning of that sentence. The U.S. eased requirements for immigrants to get certain jobs. So while Trump is out there going, me tough on immigrants, me going to ban all immigrants, ooh, in reality, his administration is easing requirements to get into the country. So why does he do that? So that his low information voters go, me like no foreigners, me like Trump. And then he turns to the business community and goes, oh, guys, don't worry about it. I'm not actually going to do that. You do whatever the hell you want. Remember, I work for the elites. You guys give me my campaign donations, and I do whatever the hell you tell me to do. So that's how this game is played.
100%. Donald Trump has been applying to increase the cap on foreign workers coming into the country since the first year of his administration. I mean, he did that. So he loves foreign workers. He has used foreign workers for his own businesses since the beginning of his businesses, right? So it's something that he's taken advantage of. It's something that the Chamber of Commerce wants to maintain. And look, for the Trump voters or supporters who might be watching this video, I just want to make a statement because I think that it's important for you to think about this. So we have already severely restricted foreigners from coming into the country. Okay, there's travel bans that impact most countries that people immigrate to the United States from. And your life still sucks. Your life sucks. Okay, because it's not about the immigrants. Your life sucks because this country is run by greed. Your life sucks because Trump doesn't care about you. The people in the administration don't care about you. You're nothing more than a pawn. Like, you're nothing more than something that the Trump administration sees as an easy way to manipulate their way into office. That's it. That's all you are. Your life sucks. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep blaming the most powerless people in the world? Or are you going to take responsibility for your bad decisions in electing that buffoon into office? That's my question.
Yeah, and look, we want to be clear. It's not that just right-wing lives suck. No, where everybody's getting crushed by the same system. So it applies equally to the right wing, the left wing, the moderates. It doesn't matter. Your wages haven't gone up in 45 years. And while Trump talks about building a big, beautiful wall, in reality, temporary worker visas have gone up every single year under Trump. Isn't that amazing? All that talk about, oh my God, I'm going to get tough on immigrants. No, maybe he'll block your relatives from Jamaica or, name any other country, Iran, certainly, right? Or I can't name a European country because then Donald Trump would never do that because he couldn't get his next wife. But anywhere else, he'll block, he might block your family members from coming in, but he is never going to defy the Chamber of Commerce. Those business interests control him completely, just like they do with corporate Democrats, corporate Republicans. And so that's why your wages never go up. That's why this system is completely owned by the corporate donors. And Trump hasn't changed that 1%. In fact, he's amplified it while pretending to be on your side. So, look, if you want to say, hey, that makes me feel better, and so my emotions and my feelings matter more than facts, okay, that's up to you. Or you could look up the facts and see, hey, have temporary worker visas actually gone up? They have every year under Trump, because those corporate interests rule us all, and they most certainly rule Donald Trump. So all this huffing and puffing will amount to absolutely nothing.
That's right. We got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll discuss how Donald Trump doesn't actually believe in free markets because he wants to intervene to save the oil industry. We'll be right back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and you as well. So let's go to the members' comments because it's part of the show. Ruth Iverson writes in, LOL, Anna's face. That is what makes Cenk's comments so good.
Wait, which face? Like, what was I reacting to? Do you know?
I don't know, but my guess is that face right there, this way. Okay. Anyway, and speaking of which, Anna's Margarita Salt writes in, immigration. Trump playing his greatest hits. Totally. You need a distraction? Throw out an immigration bone. John T. with a wonderful contribution on YouTube, Super Chat, saying the work you guys do will resonate the world over. Movements like ours take time. You're only starting to get traction required, but don't ever get discouraged. You are the light in the darkness. You are paramount to every solution. Stay too strong. Thank you, John. Super appreciate that. The contributions to YouTube Super Chat make a huge difference, and so do contributions at tyt.com/go. Let's see if we hit 140. Let's take a quick look there. Oh, almost there, 139,672. So tyt.com/go. Let's see if we can get to 140 by the end of the show. If we're lucky, maybe even 143, which will put us to 193 because of the matching grant. $4.21 from John W. Thanks for all you do. We appreciate it, and I like the amount. And then Annie Hudson gives $7.77 and says, had to close my small business down in New York City for now, and I'm still waiting on unemployment insurance. But you all made me smile right away, so here's lucky number 777. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much, and it's terrible to hear about your business. Thank you for hanging in there. Last two here, because they're so relevant to the news. From Twitter, Jess, hashtag not me, us, writes in, I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and yesterday we made national news. A meat packing plant here has an outbreak of COVID-19, and they refuse to tell us how many. 22 have been hospitalized with coronavirus, and the government has called in the CDC to help. So, guys, when they order you back to work, in this case, it's food, so they were already at work. But if Texas, Georgia, et cetera, order other workers back in, you're all in an enclosed space, and it travels through the air. So when somebody at a plant gets it, a lot of people at a plant get it. And so that's what's happening in Green Bay right now. And finally, Kara Curley says, my job finally handed out masks to everyone. We all got 2 fabric masks, but none of my heavily Republican-leaning coworkers are wearing their masks. For God's sake. There's no helping these guys. All right, Anna, back to you.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the next stimulus bill, because there is some movement on that. So Congress has reached a bipartisan deal. Specifically, the Senate has reached a bipartisan deal to inject more money into small businesses and hospitals. Now, as we have reported earlier, the money that was allocated to help small businesses ran out quickly. And so this legislation totals $484 billion and delivers funding to small businesses and hospitals. According to a summary of the deal, the legislation includes $321 billion for the depleted Paycheck Protection Program. That's the program that's meant to help small businesses, of which $60 billion is set aside for underbanked businesses, a priority for Democrats. Now, again, only $60 billion of that $321 billion is going to go toward underbanked businesses. So there's been an issue with the previous stimulus bill where banks were obviously giving their pre-existing customers preferential treatment. And so I'm concerned that the small portion of this that will be dedicated to the underbanked businesses just isn't enough. But let me give you more details. The deal also includes $60 billion in loans and grants for economic disaster assistance, $75 billion for hospitals, and $25 billion for coronavirus testing. Of that testing money, $11 billion will go to states, and some will also go to the federal government. Now, look, this story broke close to showtime, and we don't have as many specific details as I would like. The legislation still needs to go to the House. It needs to be approved by the House, where there is quite a bit of pushback by progressive lawmakers. But I'll give you those details in just a minute. Cenk, I wanted you to chime in and tell me what you think about this.
Yeah. So good news, bad news. Good news on the small business loans. That's very vital to the economy and needed. Further good news, I think, on the underbanked businesses getting it. Look, that's a situation where Democrats fought for people that are middle class and usually more minority communities. And so it does make a difference if you're a Democrat or a Republican. And the Republicans would have never fought for those people and didn't fight for those people, and the Democrats did. So credit where credit is due. And I'm glad that another good thing is I'm glad that they got money to the hospitals and for testing. My question is, why did the Republicans fight to keep money away from testing? That's unbelievable. Why is that a concession? Okay, the Democrats would like to test people, so A, we can keep them alive, but B, so we can reopen the economy, the thing that the Republicans claim that they care most about. Testing is the number one way to reopen the economy. Republicans are going, no way, not going to do it. Why? And then, like, that's that's a concession that they get from the Republicans. The Republicans are fine. I guess we'll do medicine. Okay, but you're not getting anything more. We're not giving anything more to the states or anything like that. So obviously the downsides are states get nothing. But to me, the biggest question mark, which is not resolved yet, partly because the House has to vote on it, partly because the reporting on it is so fresh, is there's a reference to the Democrats not being able to stop limits on fossil fuel subsidies. We're not sure what that means yet, but there better not be any fossil fuel subsidies. I don't know why on God's green earth we would ever give a penny to a single oil company. That's insane.
Yeah, to a failing industry, while also denying any investment in, renewable energy, which is where the future is, including where the future jobs are. But, just to speculate about what motivates Republicans, everything they do is based on short-term profits. And so for them, yes, testing has a huge impact on the economy long term, right? Because if you don't get a handle on this virus, then the economic pain is going to drag on. But for Republicans, they're like, no, let's just figure out a way to stimulate the economy right now, put as much money as we can in, first of all, most of the money has gone toward bailing out massive corporations. But now, they're throwing an additional bone to small businesses, which I, didn't think they did a good job with early on with one of the earlier stimulus bills, which is why that money ran out so quickly. They also didn't have the appropriate oversight to ensure that that money was actually going to small businesses that needed that money and deserved that money. But let's go to the House now, because I think that there will likely be pushback by members of the Progressive Caucus. Will their pushback actually be powerful enough or influential enough to get some of the concessions that they want? I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I doubt it. But I still like the fact that they're fighting. And one of the more aggressive fighters is Representative Ocasio-Cortez. Credit where credit is due. She, along with other progressives, put together a press conference to talk about their demands. And they're threatening to vote against this stimulus deal unless they get the concessions they want. Namely, they want many things that actually help individuals, including a federal paycheck guarantee program, hazard pay for frontline workers, which is so important because so many of those essential workers right now are risking their lives in order to do their jobs, right? But they should be paid more than what they're typically paid, considering the enormous amount of stress they're under right now. And so one of the things that Schumer claimed that he was going to fight for was the hazard pay. But he's a senator. It doesn't seem like he fought hard enough. So the monthly payments that they want is $2,000 per month. That would be recurring for about 6 months. And they also want a national moratorium on evictions and foreclosures that impact not only people who live in government housing or have a government loan, but would actually impact every single American. Because this virus has impacted every single American. And they want protections for everyone, regardless of immigration status. Now, I want to go to this quick video of AOC. This was during her recent Put People First press conference, along with other progressives. And here's what she had to say.
I just think it's important for us to say that incrementalism is not helpful in this moment. It's not helpful for people to say, oh, well, we got something, so we might as well support it. We got a nickel, we got a dime in $1 trillion bill, so a nickel is more than nothing, so we should support it, is unacceptable. Not in my community. A nickel doesn't help. It's like putting a Band-Aid on an enormous wound. It's not going to help us. And the thing is that I would be amenable to accepting this kind of logic if Congress actually was in session and convening. But if you're going to say, and if we're going to say that this new bill is going to give us $5 and then Congress is going to peace out for another month-long recess, I'm here to say that that's not going to help our communities.
I love the fact that she's calling out Pelosi and the whole voice vote that happened with the previous stimulus bill.
Yeah. See, that's what leadership looks like. And if we had Democratic leaders like her who understood framing, it would make a giant difference. So right now, the way that it's being framed in the press is Republicans had a plan to help small businesses, but Democrats delayed that plan for nearly 2 weeks. That's the Republican framing, and they were largely winning on that framing. Now, the real framing should be, wait, No, Democrats want to put people first. And the right priority for funding should be first actual American citizens, then small businesses, and then large businesses. When in reality, the current funding system is over 90% to giant businesses, then small businesses, and at the very bottom is actual American citizens. Now, if you had that framing where the Democrats are fighting for actual humans and the Republicans are fighting for giant corporations, which is true, then the Democrats would win. They'd win on the bills, they'd win on the policies, and they'd win in the elections. But instead of doing what AOC is doing, the Pelosi's and the Schumers of the world go out there and go, don't. We have a deal. We have to support Trump and the Republicans and the deal that we struck with them. And the deal we struck with them is super mediocre at best. And so here's AOC ruining our deal with beloved Republicans and Trump by doing really, really good framing, which also happens to be true.
Yeah. No, I commend AOC for staying true to her values. And look, we covered that story where I was a little concerned, just based on her public rhetoric, was very favorable against Pelosi. I was worried that she was starting to waver when it came to the issues that mattered the most. But you watched that press conference and she did not hold back. And calling out Pelosi, not by name, but you know who she's talking about, regarding the way that they voted on the previous stimulus bill, I think is important. And she's made clear that she was not in favor of that bill because of the corporate bailouts. We need that kind of, you're right, we need that kind of leadership in Congress. And I'm glad that she's a voice of reason in the middle of this pandemic, where it feels like politicians on both sides have used this as an opportunity to redistribute wealth to the top again. So that's where we're at.
Facts matter, substance matters, policies matter. So we had a slight disagreement with AOC on strategy, but here she is fighting for the right policies and again being the toughest fighter we have on those. So awesome. Love it. And happy to have progressives leading the way in fighting for the average American citizen that in a democracy should be what every representative does. Unfortunately, it's very rare. That's why it's a fresh of breath air when you see not only AOC, but others that participate in that conference, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley do that so effectively.
So when we come back from the break, I do want to discuss the way the Trump administration plans on helping fossil fuel companies stay afloat. It's absolutely ridiculous. We'll have that story and more when we return.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
All right, we're back on Young Turks. Tomorrow's Earth Day, which is great. It's actually the 50th anniversary. So we're doing a special with, of course, our top expert on it, John Iderola. So tune in to youtube.com/TYT or TYT.com at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow or 4 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you checked out a special programming, okay? You could also tune in on Roku, Pluto TV, Comcast, Xfinity X1, and Flex, Zumo, YouTube TV, all at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Also, don't forget, speaking of the Earth, if you sign up at aspiration.com/TYT, we plant 10 trees for every sign up. And that produces enough oxygen for 40 people, which is amazing and great. And every time you use your aspiration card, you can also plant more trees. So save the earth in that way, and get a great financial institution. Aspiration.com/TYT. Oddly magical Brandy writes in, what's going to happen if we have a major natural disaster? A major earthquake would be bad, but isn't that likely? What's certain is fire season. As we're heading into May, imagine having a fire like the one that destroyed Paradise under a stay-at-home order. And I got to be honest, Brandy, I hadn't even thought of that. And yes, if we have fires where people have to evacuate together and then get sheltered together, that's disaster on top of disaster, literally. And then Top Cat writes in, personally, I think that the New Zealand Prime Minister is a great example of what leadership looks like or would look like under AOC, i.e. great. Yes, she is great, Prime Minister of New Zealand. Gene Iwanski Jr. and Chuckman102, thank you so much, guys, for using YouTube Super Chat. We appreciate it. And the Mathematician and I'm the Derpy Dragon and others on Twitter. Yes, good points about how progressives put pressure on AOC, and perhaps that helped. And others also saying that now she's being primary, now in this case from the right, but maybe that's helping as well. It's hard to determine that, but the most important thing is credit where credit is due. AOC is doing a great job in fighting for the right things in these legislations and framing it right as well. All right, Anna, back to you.
All right. Well, the oil industry is suffering, and AOC basically posted a celebratory tweet in regard to what we're seeing. It's a decrease in demand for oil, and we have an oversupply of fossil fuels. And so as a result, the cost per barrel has gone down significantly, in some cases, even in the negative numbers. So in a now deleted tweet, AOC wrote, "You absolutely love to see it. This, along with record low interest rates, mean it's the right time for a worker-led mass investment in green infrastructure to save our planet." And I don't know why she deleted that, because she's absolutely right. I mean, if we want to think about the future of jobs in this country, something that's more sustainable, we would invest in renewable energy. We would adapt to a changing environment, not only for the economy, but more importantly, to be able to actually live on this planet, which fossil fuels obviously increasingly make it difficult to do so. So she later deleted it because a bunch of Republicans started attacking her like they typically do. This is a tweet by Republican Congressman Jody Arrington. He says, "I don't love to see it. I don't love to see oil and gas workers and their rural communities suffering as a result of this devastating price collapse. Places like West Texas and hardworking men and women in the oil patch power the bright lights of New York City, including the hospitals." But Arrington knows that those jobs, much like the coal jobs, are going to be antiquated, extinct, whatever you want to say, in the coming years. So if he actually cares about protecting those hardworking men and women, he would actually advocate for investing in renewable energy. But nonetheless, since the fossil fuel industry is really struggling right now, Donald Trump wants to come in and save the day. I'll give you the details on that in just a second. But Cenk, I'd like you to jump in first.
Yeah. So first of all, progressives have a plan that's in the Green New Deal for how to help and transition workers in industries that are hurting us. So whether it's coal or oil or the insurance industry. It's not like they didn't think of that. Of course, they thought of that. Their top priorities, American workers. So they have a great plan for that. And the subsidies to renewable energies would help transition those workers and maybe even increase their pay. So secondly, look, these oil companies are struggling now, but in the past, they were the most profitable companies in the world. And I don't mean 100 years ago. I mean, like a couple of years ago. Now the tech companies are the most profitable, but oil companies have been in the top 10 most profitable in the world for decade after decade after decade. They took home all of those billions of dollars in profits. That's gone. Now they turn around and go, I want money from the taxpayer. I'm in trouble. Well, okay, why don't you go get those billions of dollars stored in your house, and then maybe we could have a conversation. Oh, no, I get it. You want socialism for the rich. So when you were making money and you were profitable, oh, capitalism, baby, don't regulate me. Oh, it's good, man. Capitalism is awesome. Yeah. Oh, I'm not making money now. Oh, please, I want socialism. I want socialism. Please, taxpayers, bail me out. My answer to that is hell to the no. No effing way. And we should not give one red cent to these guys.
So as we know, the only thing that Donald Trump cares about is the stock market. It's what he cites when he wants to mention his so-called accomplishments as president. And so the fossil fuel industry taking a hit as a result of COVID-19 is dragging the stock market down today. And so, and has been for a few days now. And so Trump, during one of his recent press conferences, floated a plan or an idea to save the industry. Let's take a look.
Low price of oil that you've been seeing, it's at a level that's very interesting to a lot of people. We're filling up our national petroleum reserves, the strategic reserves, and we're looking to put as much as 75 million barrels into the reserves themselves. That would top it out. That would be first time in a long time it's been topped out. We'd get it for the right price. You know the price of oil right now, don't you?
I do. Do you know the price of oil?
I actually do.
It's negative $37.
Of course, nobody's ever heard of negative oil before, but it's for short term.
Are you asking for that funding?
At a minimum,
part of the
we'll let
PPP
people
deal?
store. So we'll store it. We'll use it as storage and charge for it. If we could buy it for nothing, we're going to take everything we can get. The only thing I like better than that is where they pay you to take the oil. But that's a short-term squeeze. You understand that. So I don't think you're going to see that. But no, we'd like to have Congress. This is a great time to buy oil.
Okay, so what he's proposing is that the U.S. government purchase oil and then keep it in the reserves that the government has. So it has the capacity for 797 million barrels. And as of March of this year, the inventory was already at 635 million barrels. So there is some, suspicion that he's going to have the government rent more space in order to purchase more oil because there's an abundance of supply.
Yeah. So look, this is a form of a subsidy because he's buying oil that they cannot sell in the open market. And oil that we don't need because we have a massive amount of reserves, as Anna just pointed out to you. So it's a way of helping his donors who are oil executives. And so that's how we get robbed. If there's nothing you can do about what Trump can do through an executive order. But if they try to pass any legislation, any Democrat that votes for 1 penny going to the oil companies should be primaried, should be thrown out of office. And I'm not telling it to you in hindsight, I'm telling it to you ahead of time. So don't give me this crap later about, no, you got to support every Democrat. No, I'm telling you ahead of time. They should not support Donald Trump. If you're get animated about fighting Donald Trump, then don't agree with him on subsidizing oil companies. You know, one of the things that Trump's doing right now, his administration, they're considering letting the coal companies get rid of a tax that would help coal miners that have black lung disease. Then they pretend they're doing it for the workers. No, they're going to let the workers die from black lung disease and catch a tax break because they found a good opportunity during a crisis. That's how these guys operate. It's never for your benefit.
Never. All right. One final story for you. So Kentucky is unfortunately one of the states where we're seeing all sorts of anti-lockdown protests. People want to go out there and work, even though we're still grappling with this coronavirus pandemic. However, luckily, the governor of Kentucky, who's a Democrat, Governor Andy Beshear, has announced that he will not reopen the economic sectors or relax restrictions within the state because there has been a significant uptick in the number of coronavirus cases in the state. Beshear announced in a press conference Sunday that 273 new cases of COVID-19 had emerged, the highest Beshear has announced so far. That brings the current state case count to 2,960, per the Kentucky Department of Health, and 148 fatalities have been reported. But I also want to be clear that Kentucky happens to be one of the states that has fallen behind in testing considerably. So the total tests completed in Kentucky as of April 13th was 5.8 per 1,000 people. That's the 12th lowest of all 50 states. And so I say that because even though the numbers are higher now, the truth is we still don't have a real sense of how many people are really infected with this virus. It could be much higher.
So we don't know that any of the protesters in Kentucky got coronavirus, but there are these protesters going out there going, we got to open up. Meanwhile, coronavirus is flaring up in Kentucky. And so this is, by the way, exactly what we told you. Why? Because we actually listened to scientists. And the scientists said that what we're worried about is this stuff travels, so obviously through humans. And so we're worried that it'll flare up in the middle of the country after it hits the coast. And here we are. And it's ironically the middle of the country that's most agitating to reopen right now when they're potentially in the greatest danger. Whereas if we have tons of testing, we can isolate the people that have the issues, quarantine them, and reopen the country quicker. But again, the right wing doesn't understand any of that. But the thing is, the only time the conservatives ever care is when it happens to them. So maybe if there's flare up in places like Kentucky, they might go, oh my God, it's real. I thought it was a hoax. Turns out Bobby Sue has it. So now it's real all of a sudden.
I don't know. I mean, reason and logic doesn't seem to apply to most people these days, and it's devastating. And by the way, Attorney General William Barr has mentioned that he could pursue legal action against states that the Trump administration deems going too far in their restrictions. He said, quote, we're looking carefully at a number of these rules that are being put into place. And if we think one goes too far, we initially try to jawbone the governors into rolling them back or adjusting them. And if they're not, and people bring lawsuits, we file statement of interest and side with the plaintiffs.
Crazy. Can I just say, one family in Alabama right now has 9 cases of coronavirus and 3 dead in just one family in Alabama. Listen to the doctors. For God's sake, stay safe.
All right. The post game is next. Become a member, support the show. Go to tyt.com/join. For everyone else, have an awesome night.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.